So why do guitarists refuse to learn the notes on the fretboard? That is the question that I will be posing today, and I'll be posing it to you and to myself as well. And I've come up with 3 different reasons. Now I'm sure there are plenty more reasons than the ones that I came up with, but I've come up with 3. One of which is kind of tongue-in-cheeky, if you know what I mean. Well, you don't know what I mean, but you will if you watch this. So this is going to include some conjecture, so some of my own opinions, but I'll sprinkle some factual information in there and some objectivity. I know how much everyone loves objectivity coming in on this channel. I know that for a fact. This video is really meant to stimulate thought. Alright, so I want everyone to be thinking, using your noggins, that cranium. I know you got a big cranium up there, you got to put it to use, okay? So if I say something that's, Mike, that sounds very interesting, that stimulates thought. Conversely, if somebody says, Mike, I don't agree with that at all. I think you're completely off base. In fact, I hate you for even saying it. That also stimulates some thought, right? Because you're creating a sense of turbulence within somebody's mind. Not like I'm intentionally trying to do that or ruffle anybody's feathers, but sometimes, you know, I might have an opinion that doesn't align with yours, and that's totally fine. That's all part of this thought stimulation process in which I'm trying to engage in here. Another thing that's going to help this is audience comments and questions. So all of your comments, questions, and concerns, you know, write them in the comments. I read the comments, by the way. So this will help this flower into something much larger than it was originally even intended for. Okay, so I hope that that is the case. I hope these are interesting as well. So the first thing we have to get out of the way before I get into the 3 reasons is, what is musical literacy? What I mean by musical literacy. I don't mean literally being able to read and write, right? The literal definition of literacy. I mean literacy in a synesthetic sense. So synesthesia is when 2 senses are kind of combined. So let's say I'm imagining the note A, and I'm hearing A as a sound that's not related to the actual letter or the sound A, right? It's more so like on the guitar. I'll give you a quick example, right? If I play this, close my eyes, A. That's just popping in my head as A. G, right? But no letters, there's no numbers on the screen, there's nothing else, just my imagination. That in itself is synesthesia, okay? And musicians are in a unique position where people who play music experience that quite regularly, especially more advanced musical types or musicians. So this whole thing is going to sort of explore that idea, and it explores more so the knowledge of musicians rather than the literacy itself. Alright, so I don't mean literally the letters on the page. Okay? Now let's get into why. Alright, reason number 1 is how the guitar is laid out. Okay? The positions of the guitar are laid out in such a way that it almost caters to us being lazy. It unconsciously programs us to not really even have to think about it too much. If you think about it a little bit, you know, I could say, alright, we got this riff. Little blues riff, alright? So I know that's blues. I don't know that this is F. I know that this is the 1st fret, right? And I know I'm going 1, 4. And I want to do that and say, well, let's change the key. Let's go to A flat. And I say, what? A flat? I don't know what that is. What do you mean? The 4th fret. Oh. The 4th fret. Duh. This whole process kind of naturally makes guitar players, for lack of a better word, a little guitarded, if you know what I'm saying. Alright? Because we just don't have to think about it. We can change keys on a whim, and it doesn't even matter. Any other instrument, they have to learn all those notes. Keyboard, you have to learn every single note, and you have to know all of the different shapes that come with learning a new key. The guitar, you can just play in all different keys and it doesn't matter at all, right? So that's kind of the first point that I'll make there, is that the way that the guitar is laid about is conducive to this sort of thing. People refusing to learn the notes due to the way it's laid out. So this is more of an unconscious step, alright? So not necessarily a conscious ignorance, more of an unconscious one programmed from the very start. Not intentionally at all, either, okay? And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with, learning things based on just positions. I mean, plenty of great music has been written as such. However, it does limit you at the end of the day. Yeah, because you're not understanding what other musicians need to go through in order to learn those steps. And you're missing a very critical part of the entire situation. Now, the second reason is a very obvious one. All right, so you're going to be like, oh, duh, why did I even click on this video? Number two is guitar tabs. All right, it only has the fret numbers, once again, continuing from the previous idea. And why should I learn the notes when I could play all of these solos and cool riffs? Why? What's the purpose? I can play the Stairway to Heaven solo just fine. I don't need any help. I don't need anybody else. I don't need to know the letters that I'm learning. I don't need to know the notes or even the scales. I don't need to know any of that stuff, man, because I'm cool. I got my sunglasses on and I'm playing all these great riffs, these classic riffs in front of everybody. Everybody loves it. I feel great. My self-esteem is through the roof. Why do I need to go any further with that? There's another question, right? Why should I go any further with that should be the next one. But that's kind of where I'm getting at with that. And within the internet era, this has become increasingly more of an issue, okay? With music literacy, in the sense that I'm talking about it, going down the tubes. People not even understanding the basic premise of what the notes are on the fretboard. And guitar tabs, in large part, are responsible for this because even though they've been around for years, they've been around for, I would say, probably a century, maybe more. You can fact check me on that. I honestly don't even know how long they've been around, but I know it's been around a lot longer than just the modern era that I come from. But the internet has made it the most popular way to learn guitar. And that, to me, avoiding standard notation entirely has led to this rise in musical illiteracy, we'll say it is, okay? And I mean that in the synesthetic sense, remember, of course. The third reason is very simple. It's just two words, two proper nouns, and that's Kurt Cobain. That's right, 3 syllables, Kurt Cobain. With creativity, he put musicians and non-musicians under a total spell. And he's been cited on many interviews as saying, we're not musicians in this band, right? That's not our goal, to be musicians. We don't want to be these great musicians, which I understand that portion of the program. But he also says that, he's going to be putting the musician's music last, effectively, right? So the songwriting and the creative structure of the band is far more important than being a musician, which I agree with to a certain extent. However, that message has pervaded into the masses, all right? I grew up during the post-grunge era, all right? So I just missed all that stuff. I was too young to experience it for myself. Although I did watch MTV Unplugged at a young age. That Alice in Chains Unplugged performance, magnifico, all right? The Nirvana one's really good too, but anyway, I'm getting sidetracked here. So I grew up during that era, and I noticed from all the kids at school that were learning how to play guitar, none of us, including myself, knew how to actually read notes or even understood what notes were. You might have had like one person in middle school or whatever that understood what a B flat was, but other than that, everyone was just kind of jamming. We were just playing. We couldn't be bothered with the whole musician element of it. We wanted to be cool, right? We wanted to bring our skateboards into middle school and get suspended indefinitely for doing so. So it wasn't about the music at all. It wasn't about being a musician. It was about sort of the image that was put forth, right? And I'm guilty of this as well. And I think Kurt Cobain, and don't get me wrong, he was a prolific songwriter, one of the greatest songwriters ever of all time. Immense amount of creative energy was put into those Nirvana songs, and an immense amount of creative turmoil, really, because that's what he was through. He was going through extreme turmoil while writing those songs, and it showed. Definitely a tortured individual, but wonderful, wonderful songs, and a lot of the chord progressions are very complex, which sort of makes me feel like he was more of a trickster than anything else, and he was kind of pranking everybody by saying, well, I'm not really a musician, you know, I'm not like that guy Steve Gadd, I'm not like that guy Alan Holdsworth, I'm not like these guys, you know, these guys that play 1,000,000 notes per second. You know, I love Black Sabbath and the Beatles, you know, which was the sentiment of a lot of grunge artists back in the day. But he says, I'm not like that, you know, I'm just here, I'm pure form, all right? I'm coming here from a place of purity, a place of innocence, no corruption whatsoever, even though, you know, I mean, he was proven to have some corrupted thoughts in his head, but, you know, that's neither here nor there. I guess what I'm trying to get at here is that he sort of pervaded this message of, you don't have to be good at music to play music, which I get it, you know, from the standpoint of not being an elitist. I totally understand that, and I think it's beautiful. However, I do think it rapidly declined the musical literacy of an entire generation. And the great irony behind all of this is that I believe that beyond the 1990s, musical literacy has fallen. It's just hit the floor. I think it's at an all-time low. I really do. Since music was not even a thing, since written music was even existed, I think it's fallen to an all-time low. Even though tons of people understand music in that way, I think a lot of people struggle to understand theory, right? And the theoretical concepts associated with music. Now, I see a sort of a reversal of that. I do see more people interested in the idea that, hey, maybe I should learn the notes and should learn music theory because I'm stuck. I hit a wall. And that's what's happening now, I believe. But when I was growing up, people were playing, there was no concern for that whatsoever. All right? Even amongst the adults, I feel like. They weren't really trying to press the issue of, yeah, you should probably learn the notes and learn theory. So that's where I'm getting at with this. Now, like I said, the irony of this is that I can compare it to musicians during the Reconstruction era of the American Civil War, right? These are former slaves coming out into society and playing blues, okay? They couldn't read or write, right? I would think that actual literacy was way higher, is probably at an all-time high in humanity from the 90s forward. I could say that without even citing any statistics. But back then, literacy amongst poor people was very low. However, you can cite all sorts of musical examples from back then. All the blues legends, right? Robert Johnson, John Lee Hooker, the bluegrass, folk music, right? From different cultures and different styles that sort of manifested within the American South that played these songs. And they couldn't read or write. Definitely the poor people couldn't. Yet they could play music very, very well. And they at least, I would say, understood what an F was, what a B flat was, where it is, how to play it, and what the shapes meant, and probably a 1-4-5, because a lot of that music is within 1-4-5, so it had to be deep within the fabric of those cultures at the time. And I find that that has been a lost thing. Ironically enough, we have more information at our disposal than ever before. Yet I feel like musical literacy and musical knowledge is at a low point. It doesn't seem important to people, is basically what I'm trying to say. So I just thought all that was kind of interesting. Hopefully this was interesting for you. I'm going to put a close on this, and hopefully you enjoyed this, and I'll see you on the next one. Goodbye.